Alright guys, today I thought we'd take a look at my AV setup. This is where all of my consoles are connected, all of my standard definition consoles, my PS3 and 360 and all that are in the living room area. But anything that I would consider to be retro or standard definition, I've all got them connected to my Sony PVM 20 M2 MDU. I did make a video about this monitor about 3 or 4 years ago, but I didn't go into too many details about how I had all of this stuff connected, and I didn't quite have the setup that I do today. So I wanted to touch on some of that and discuss how I have these set up, what my setup is like, and what's using RGB, what's not using RGB, so forth and so on. This is still very much a work in progress. There are some things I'd like to change in this setup, but for the most part, everything is pretty easily playable on this one monitor. I did recently pick up a Dreamcast, but I am waiting on a VGA box to come in to hook that one up to the gateway, since that is a 640 by 480 31 kilohertz true VGA monitor. 27 inches, pretty excited to play some Dreamcasts on that. So today we'll focus on the PVM. So what I've done is I have set up as many consoles as I can through RGB. Now this is a SCART connector, which the reason I'm bringing this up, for us in the United States, we were not fortunate enough to have RGB on our TVs. RGB is a little bit more of a luxury here versus something that was relatively common in other parts of the world. So you guys that are in Europe that are snickering, just keep laughing. We're finding ways to get around it. But so I've got this SCART switcher here. Here's the output. Output's going into the B and C connector on the back of the PVM. That's the RGB input type on this PVM. And then I've got three AV outs, three AV inputs from three different consoles that I've labeled here: Mega Drive, Saturn, and Super Nintendo. Now I've also got an audio output here. This is a common output from all of these, and it'll just filter it over here to the audio switchboard. The reason I have this little audio switcher here is because I don't have everything hooked up via RGB. I do have the Mega Drive, the Saturn, and the Super Nintendo. I do have an RGB cable for the PS2, but I'm going to need another one of those switchers to expand my RGB console connections, since I'm maxed out on this one. So that's one of the changes I'll be making in the future to get the PS2 in RGB, which looks really good. The N64, this particular model, cannot be RGB modded, so the GameCube and the N64 share an AV cable, S-video on both of those. And likewise, the PC Engine and the Famicom share an AV cable, composite video for each one of those. PC Engine is another one that I will eventually convert into RGB and set up onto a second SCART switch. So I will power on one of these consoles. Let's choose the Saturn here, which coincidentally is already switched to. Alright, so I'll turn on the Super Nintendo as well. And let's see, switch that. So by switching it on this SCART selector, effectively turning one of these two RGB inputs on this monitor into several with just an easy little SCART switch. I do want to mention also that I am using European style SCART and not Japanese style. It's a little easier to get the hardware, and really the end result is the same between the two. So it's really easy to get this set up if you've got the PVM already and you've got the adapter for SCART. It can get a little tricky if you've got a PVM that's got a custom connector on the back. It's called a computer, or I think it's labeled COMPTR connector on the back. You're going to have either make or have somebody make a custom adapter for it to either SCART input or BNC in order to be able to get this kind of a setup. But it's definitely a heck of a lot easier. So then all I have to do here is, looks like I've already got it on the Saturn and SNES, so we are good there. Should have sound. I don't have a controller hooked up. Let's try it out. In my magical bin of miscellaneous controllers. Well, let's just test something real quick. Oh, nope, we don't want YouTube flagging me, but you get the idea. It works. So, sorry for my choking and hacking. I've picked up a little bit of a cold here recently, but you guys get the idea. If you have any questions, just leave a comment. But yeah, basically, wanted to make this video in response to some people that have reached out to me and asking me how I have all this stuff set up. There's still some changes I want to make, as mentioned before, but I think it's a pretty easy setup. And the more consoles you can get to RGB, the better off you are, because why else would you want to own one of these PVMs? Because RGB is, once you go to RGB, you just can't go back to S-video or composite. So hopefully VGA doesn't spoil me in the same way on the Dreamcast, but we'll see. Anyway, appreciate you guys watching, and hope you enjoyed.